Good afternoon, and welcome to Tulsa City County Library's Tools for Building Business series. I'm Martha Gregory with the library's Research Center, and before we start, I want you to know that this event is being recorded. Our program today is Sizing Up the Competition, which you can see at the bottom of the screen, description of it. And this is a final session in this series. Recordings of all three of them will be available for you to access on the library's YouTube channel after the series is completed. All participants except the speakers are in the listen only mode, and we will use the chat feature for asking questions and getting answers. So please submit your questions as you think of them, and to do so, just click on chat at the bottom of the Zoom screen. The questions will be answered periodically throughout the presentation. And speaking of questions, Bill Carlson, our guest speaker from Reference Solutions, is going to ask you a question, and you can be deliberating, reviewing this question while I'm talking here. Make some notes, because as you can see, he's offering a $20 Starbucks card for anyone who can answer that question using the U.S. Businesses module, which is what we're going to be using in the presentation. How many verified veterinarians are there in Tulsa County? And make sure to make a note of Bill Carlson's email address at the bottom, so that if you want to enter this contest, you can send your answer straight to Bill. We're very pleased to have Bill with us. He's with Data Axle in Omaha, Nebraska, and he's going to showcase their reference solutions databases. This in particular, I would say that the library has subscribed to their databases for decades. The Reference USA used to be called Reference USA on our library database list, just FYI. Bill's been with the company since 2008, and during those years, he's worked with public libraries all over the country, teaching their customers how to use their databases. Data Axle Reference Solutions is on the library's website, available 24/7, any place, anytime, and free to library card holders. And if you want to get a card, just visit the library's website and you can order a free card online. You only have to work in, be a student in, or live in Tulsa County to qualify. Reference Solutions is a heavyweight. Its group of databases has something for everyone. Collectively, these databases cover nearly every household and every establishment, regardless of kind, profit, nonprofit, schools, government, virtually every address in the United States and Canada. Bill will now show us how to explore reference solutions for crafting perfect customer profiles. Bill?
Thank you, Martha. Absolutely. I am going to, it's still giving me the message that the host has disabled the participant screen sharing. If you could change that, that'd be perfect. Just let me know when that's been set, and I'll switch to my screen. There it goes. You should be seeing that here momentarily. There it is. So everyone can see that I'm on the Tulsa City County Library's version of Access to Reference Solutions. We're out of Omaha, Nebraska. The company itself, Data Axle, has been around since 1972. This particular product has been around since 1992 and is made available to libraries across the United States. As Martha mentioned, you can get access as long as you're in one of the 50 states. You can get access from anywhere. So certainly feel free to access it if you're on vacation and gosh, maybe where you're at, it's raining and it should be sunny. You could always go into the database and take a look at movie theaters that might be in the area or museums. We have that information covered. So know that that can all be accessible through the use of your library card. And with that said, I do want to point out we offer webinars on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so you can certainly attend any of our webinars, or maybe you come away with so much information, you want to share it with some peers or some colleagues, you could certainly let them know about the fact that we offer those webinars, and all they need to do is have that Tulsa City County Library card, and they'd be able to join any of those webinars. We also have under the Learning Center, and I'll open this window up real quick. We have all of our contact information here in several spots. So I do want you to understand that you can certainly reach out to the library for assistance, or if you'd like, we're certainly available as well. Any of my colleagues or myself, when we would answer the call, we would be able to walk you through whatever it was that you needed to get to. But there is some information under this marketing and training material. It's these database overviews. So we have one for each of our modules. We have 10 of those modules, and they're all listed there. Today, we'll focus on this US business database. So if you needed to, you could always print this off if you would like, or you could have it open on another tab. That will literally walk you through how to do a search. And we do have down here at the bottom a business data dictionary. So if you had a question about some element in the data record, you could certainly probably get your answer to that question from that data dictionary. That is always available to you. And I'll just go back to my home page here. Oops. I guess I'm going to close that one and be there here. I do like to point out that we also have an app that you could download. And when you go to use that, it would ask you to put in your zip code, at which point in time you would see your library, click on it, enter the library card number, and you're in. With using the app, there are 2 modules that are available in there. Certainly the US Business Database, which we'll focus on today, but as well the US Consumer Lifestyles. That would also be contained in the app. And last but not least, we do give you the ability, and by the way, this isn't a shortcut, it's an additional step actually. You would log in through the library's website using your library card number, and then once you're on the home page, you can come right down here, and after you've registered, log in and actually be able to save searches. So let's say that you had produced a list of records from the US Business Database, and you wanted to come back to that list maybe a week or 2 weeks or a month later, whatever it is. You can certainly do so, and we'll present to you the latest and greatest information that we have at that time. So it's possible that your list was maybe 500 records strong, and then you come back and it's 503. That's because we've added 3 more to that particular method that you use to create that search. Or conversely, maybe there are only 497 because we took 3 records out that we either learned were closed, or we weren't able to get them verified. And I'll talk about the verified a little bit more. So we go through this process with the US Business Database. We call verified that information. The first trigger, the first thing that causes us to start that verification is when the phone books are sent out in a particular area. And digitally, or we get them digitally nowadays, thank goodness. We bump that up against our current database. Anything that's a new record that we did not have will get accepted. Anything that's a duplicate gets rejected, and then we start calling. So we call those businesses once a year, certainly to confirm that address information, company name. We ask who that owner or manager is of that business. We ask about the line of business that they're in. Might have several lines of business, right? We ask that information, how many employees they have, and then we overlay some additional information that I'll show you here momentarily. So we're doing that week in and week out, and we're pushing those updates live every Thursday into Friday morning. So once a week, this is being updated and pushed live. So no, that's what could cause those changes to occur in those records that you have saved. Likewise, if we don't reach a business and we will try for a dozen attempts throughout the course of 2 years, if we can't keep them verified, we can't find any information about them having closed, we will move them from that verified status into that unverified. And of course, that would get updated. So that's why I say your numbers could go up or down depending on what's happened within that particular industry. Same thing if it's closed. If we do learn that it's closed, then we'll update that accordingly. And I'll show you how you can identify the differences between those records. It's quite easy. So this is once a week, whereas our US historical information, this is updated at the beginning of each year. Our Canadian information is monthly. Our jobs and internships, this is through Indeed.com. This is updated daily. Our US new business filings. So those are new business filings done through the Secretary of State's office. It's relatively limited information because they're not asked to fill out a whole lot. And in some cases, they don't even complete it, right? So we get that filing, and then our job becomes moving it from this holding position here in the new business database to verifying it and giving it a complete record in here. We're generally able to turn those around in about 30 to 60 days. Our US healthcare, this information is updated monthly along with the white pages, the consumer lifestyles, and the Canadian white pages. Those are all monthly. And then last but not least, the US new movers, new homeowners, were fully licensed to bump our database up against the national change of address. And that's where we're capturing this information from. So we're doing that once a week. So with that said, let's go right into the US business database. This is where I'm going to spend the majority of my time here. When I come into any of the modules, I'm always going to come to this quick search page first. I could do a company name search. Maybe there's one record that I want to see. I could look up that particular business and then produce that one result. I could also do a first name, last name search for an executive. Perhaps there was an executive that I knew of at a particular company, and now I've learned that they've moved, but I haven't found out where they've moved to. I could certainly try that first name, last name search. Hopefully you at least have that city and state that they're in, and then you could certainly produce that record or those records. And then, of course, I can look at all information as it relates to a city or state, and even do a reverse phone number lookup. I do want to show you one tool, and I'm going to show it to you in a couple of different ways. So the first way will be using simply your community, right? I'm just going to put in Tulsa and then grab Oklahoma and view my results. Whenever I go from the quick search option, I'm only going to be able to see verified records. I don't have the ability from quick search to pull in unverified or closed businesses. So across the city, there are some 30,000 businesses that make up those businesses across your community. I can, using this charts feature, I can begin to make sense of what kinds of businesses make up these 30,000. We all have imaginations and, oh, restaurants or attorneys' offices or doctors, or this makes it pretty concrete with relationships to the SIC code that those businesses are under. So all businesses are assigned an SIC code. And in this case, I've got this top 7. In this first position, if you will, are surgeons and physicians. And that's typically the way it is in most communities. They're all 1099 guys and gals. That's why there are so many of them. In this case, it's followed by attorneys, then restaurants, then nurse practitioners, insurance, churches, and finally in 7th position would be dentists. If we were looking at my community, in this 7th position would be automated teller machines. So we do have business records for automated teller machines as well as kiosks. And I mention that because not everybody would want to see those kinds of records in their output. So I'll come back to that in another search and show you how you could eliminate or exclude those types of businesses from your end results. I do have, if you continue to scroll through the record here, I do have a full list of all those business records. There's 122 pages of them, in fact. And I have them broken down by their, and if you're not familiar with what SIC stands for, it's Standard Industrial Classification Code. So for physicians and surgeons, it's this code, and I have this many of those records that relate to that. So if I needed to get to just these real estate offices, for example, maybe I had some kind of software that I wanted to be able to market to or introduce to real estate offices that would help them with their marketing of their homes and properties. I can get to that group. I can just click on that 354 and it hyperlinks me right into that group. So it just depends on what you need to be able to do with the data that we provide in this charts report. And of course, I could be paging through, or if I wanted to get to the very last page, I could just type in 122 there and hit enter. Just depends on what I want to do. So know that's always available, and you can print this off or make it part of a PowerPoint presentation. It's kind of interesting also when if I switch this up from SIC code, and by the way, we also have the NAICS code, that's the North American Industrial Classification System code. Say that 3 times really fast. We do have that code as well. That's technically replaced the SIC codes, but we've kept the SIC codes alive because we've made them more granular than what they ever were when Uncle Sam was deploying them. But if I wanted to switch up to, say, looking at these records from an employment standpoint, I could even do that. So notice this top group here, I've got almost 60% of the businesses employ 1 to 4 employees, followed by that 5 to 9, that 10 to 19, 20 to 49. You get the idea. So you certainly have that ability as well. And then we'll give you some of those larger employers and then that breakdown. So know that that's going to be available on each and every search. The number of records that you can apply to the chart is pretty much unlimited. I think the largest community I've ever done was New York City. So it handled that just fine. I don't know that I suppose if you looked at an entire state, that might be a little different story, but I can chart that information. And I got there really quite simply by putting in the city and state. Know that you can, and most people do, go to advanced search right away because that allows you to use several more filters. And by the way, it says additional filters, that goes to the same place, advanced search. So here are all my filters on this left-hand column, and it goes down here quite a ways, as you can see. So once I start to begin to select my filters, that will populate here in the center of the screen. And then when I'm ready to produce my records, I either view my results or maybe I want to update my count just to kind of get a sense of what I'm about to see for number of records. I know that some people need to limit their number of records versus having a maximum output. So it just depends on what your needs might be. On this left-hand column, for example, company name here, we saw under quick search where you could search for one company by name. This simply allows you to put in multiple companies by name and be able to drive those in. So if I wanted IBM and we did talk about Starbucks earlier. If Starbucks were another one of those, I could use a Starbucks this afternoon. We've got that information. Then it's just a matter of what geography do I want to look at these businesses in. Otherwise, we'll always give you the company name. We'll always give you this executive title information or name or gender or ethnicity. It just depends on what you might need. Maybe you only need to see female-led businesses. You could do that in whatever geography were important to you. It just depends on what you might need. If you need executives, but maybe you don't want all executives, you only want the CEO, you could certainly make that your driver and then get that CEO if you would like. Again, you get to be the driver. Maybe you want to see only companies with an owner present. You could do that. You get to be the one that decides how that is output. Keyword search is generally the way that most people do a search. Certainly, if I had one SIC code, I could put that here and search for it that way. As it notes, like, for example, with restaurants, if I wanted to look at all restaurants in whatever geography, I could do so. I do like to point out this major industry group. This is only SIC codes, and it begins with their 2-digit number. So you can see, like under construction here, there's 15, 16, and 17. If you would like to know the definitions for those, you simply click on that plus symbol, and there are the definitions for each of those. And if you were maybe interested in this general contractors, you can click in that plus symbol and it breaks it down to that extent that Uncle Sam used to post this information in a 4-digit number with the definitions for each. So if general contractors for single family houses was what you wanted to see, you could either select everything that's under that umbrella, and here it is, by the way. See how granular we've taken it? So we added 2 more codes to this, 2 more numbers to this to make it a 6-digit code. And if maybe you only want to see those companies that specialize in bathroom remodeling. I can't tell you, every time I've seen a commercial, it seems like every 3rd commercial is about remodeling your bathroom. So apparently there's a big business in that. So you could select that, you could drive that in, and you can also get as specific as telling the system, I only want to see those businesses that's their primary line of business. You know, any general contractor might say, sure, I can remodel your bathroom. But if you'd rather not take the chance on having just anyone do it, but rather someone that's their primary line of business, you could get that granular. And that was just by adding a couple of clicks. And then, of course, I would select my geography. So a great way to be able to get that kind of information. Geography speaks for itself. I will show you this map-based search tool. Some of you may choose to use that. Phone speaks for itself. Number of employees. So when we're making those verification phone calls, we always ask how many employees they have. About 72% of the businesses will give us an exact number. If they don't answer that question, what we'll do is we'll look at that company's competition, their peers, and identify a range that we would apply versus an actual number, since they didn't respond to that question. And then with sales volume, we learned a long time ago, you don't ask that question, not without having that line all of a sudden go blank on you. So we actually have a team that puts together an algorithm, and they're using information like the line of business or lines of business that company is in, how long they've been in business, where they're physically in business at, because there are going to be lots of variables that we have to consider with that as well. Everything from expenses like payroll expenses to benefit expenses to leasing expenses to power expenses. You can imagine all of the different variances there depending on where that business might be physically located. So then we also get some information through the Bureau of Labor and Statistics in order to be able to provide that algorithm that produces that. And that would also be true for business expenditures down here under the financial data. So those are all modeled, except for if it's a publicly traded company, then of course we're capturing that information from their 10K report. So know that that is how those two filters would work. I also have home-based businesses. So if I were doing a search just in a general area, like I did in Tulsa, when I pulled up all businesses in Tulsa, I can identify just home-based businesses if I'd like, or I could exclude them if I didn't want them output in my search. Maybe I'm searching a neighborhood in Tulsa, and I don't want any of those home-based businesses that might be in that neighborhood to show up. I could certainly choose to exclude those. If you choose nothing here, they will always be produced as long as it's something that would be a home-based business. I always joke with my nephew that he seems to treat his parents like they're a home-based bank, and of course they're not. So it all depends on the type of industry that you're certainly looking at. I'll always provide you with this financial data where that's available. Special selections, sometimes people want to see those companies with web addresses, or perhaps those without. If I were a web designer, I'd like to know about those businesses that don't have a website. I do like to point out years in the database. Certainly, if you're looking at newer companies that have opened up in your community, you could select years in the database, and it doesn't matter if you add a certain type of business or not. If you wanted to look at those businesses from a standpoint of being relatively new to your community, that's how you would do that. And then you would drive in whatever, again, geography were important. So know you could do that. And then we have a variety of ways that you can omit information. I mentioned that in my community, we have ATMs. So if you did not want those records to potentially show up in your search, especially if it were a generic neighborhood search, then you could choose ATM and search for that. It will produce the SIC code along with the description for ATM here in these results, and then I simply click on it. So here is my automated teller machines. I can click on that, add that to my selected field, and I can click on as many as I want. Maybe I don't want banks either. I can click on as many of those. I could add a different type of business and select it as well. Just depends on what I don't want. So as long as I leave that in play, those particular types of records will never show up. Let's do this. Let's do a simple search, and I need some numbers, and I happen to like to use restaurants because they always produce enough numbers for me. So I'll go with restaurants here and search for that. Notice there are my verified records. So this 15 million plus, almost 16, are all verified records. There are those unverified. So those are the ones that we weren't able to get a hold of after a dozen attempts, and we weren't able to find anything about perhaps them closing. So they go into this unverified universe until we learn something one way or the other, right? And in some cases, you may never learn anything about those particular businesses. But I do like to share that, there could be a business or some businesses in your community that are in there simply because we didn't have the luck of reaching them, but they could well still be open. So you may want to use that universe to look to see if there might be some opportunities there for you as well. You search it just like you would using all of this different criteria. So it's certainly available to you if you'd like to use that. So here's my all-inclusive for restaurants. So that would be McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, Outback Steakhouse. All of those folks would be listed under this all-inclusive for restaurants. And then I'll just do the county again. I was just down in Houston and I almost made the mistake of saying, let's go back to Texas. No, we're stopping in Oklahoma. So there's my Tulsa County. So I'm looking at all restaurants, and notice I'm searching all SIC codes. So my total is 1,599. Notice what happens if I change this to searching only primary. And when I say that, think about Walmart. You know, their primary line of business is they're a grocery store, but they have all of those other lines of business that they do. You know, they have the pharmacy, the garden center, the automotive, the toys, the electronics, etc. So when I select search only the primary SIC code, watch what happens to my number here. So it drops it down to 1333. So it's gotten rid of businesses like bowling alleys that have a restaurant in it, or movie theaters that offer a dining experience, those types of businesses. I can view that. And I do want to go back to this chart real quick here, because you can chart anything, right? Now we know we're only looking at this one type of business, right? Restaurants. So instead of having the SIC and NAICS codes like we saw when we were looking at the entire community, this gives me the breakdown of the top 7 cities. So I have that listed there, a full report here, and I can change that up. So remember when we saw employment size from a community standpoint, 1 to 4 was that largest audience. Where do you see 1 to 4 here? Not down here, not till you're in this 4th position. So starts off with that largest group at almost 42% of 5 to 9, then 20 to 49, 10 to 19, 1 to 4. So know that you can switch that up, make that part of a PowerPoint presentation. I know that lenders love to see this kind of information, especially maybe you've got a product and you've got it at a price point of X and you want to be able to sell this product to restaurants. I can go in under sales volume and get a look at those restaurants by that sales revenue. So in relationship to 500,000 or less, I've got about 50%, a little over 50% of those businesses fall into that range, followed by 1 to 2.5 million at almost 23%. So great information that you can present to a lender. They love to see this kind of insight. I can also, now, mind you, I'm looking at all restaurants. I could be looking, maybe I intend on opening a Mexican restaurant. I could be looking at just those kinds of restaurants if I'd like. I also have this density map. It's a heat map. No, that's not a storm over Tulsa. That is the density map for all restaurants across the county. So where you see these red areas, that means that there are a lot of restaurants in those areas. Where it flushes to yellow, fewer, green, even less, no color, no restaurants there. So think about being able to use that if you're looking to open a particular business in an area. Could be some great insights for you. I, of course, have this top 50 tally by zip code in the area as well. And I can always manipulate this map. If I get it to the point where it's at 300 or fewer records, this is what will happen. And I'll just drill in a little bit here and go there. And I bet you one more will do it. So it starts to pinpoint those locations and gives you this legend on the side. So if I needed to know where this Wild Fork was at, bingo, there it is. And if there's a plus symbol, it simply means that there's more than one result here at this location. So it all depends on what you need to be able to do. You can utilize this in a variety of ways, and again, make that part of a PowerPoint presentation if you'd like. And you are able to extract these records from the database as well. So if you would like to, and I would point out, you can download 250 records at a time. So there are 25 records per page here. All you need to do is put a check mark in this empty box next to company name, and you can grab all that. And you can just keep going until you've reached the 10th page. That would be 250 of those records. At which point in time, and you can get pretty quick at this. I'm sometimes not the best. I don't have the best mouse control. So you can get pretty quick at that though, and be able to then download that information. As I mentioned earlier, you can save your searches. You can certainly print that off. Downloading, and there's two approaches here that you can take. If you'd like to make mailing labels, perhaps, you could certainly do that. And the comma delimited would be the one you want to leave that in. And if this summary information of company name, address, phone, it would also include the owner or manager of that location, their name, title, the number of employees, the sales volume, etc., would be included in there. You could email those records to yourself, by the way, and it still drops it into Excel for you. Or you can simply select download. Here's that Excel document. And my pages, this page that I just presented, these are all static pages. You can't add to these other than arranging the cell width. Otherwise, you can't add to this. But you could open your own version of Excel if you wanted to. Maybe you wanted to download 750 of those records. So, and if you wanted to keep them in one document, why not open your own? Simply come up here to this spot between cell 1 and A and simply copy all of this information, drop it onto your version of Excel. Don't mess with the cell size yet. And then simply minimize yours, come back here, close mine. And then you can select the word back. It brings you back to that 10th page. Now you've got to get rid of these check marks so you don't keep producing the same records again. So with that, simply revise search. Doesn't forget how you built your search. There's those 1,333 records. Then I can grab that. And at this point in time, all I have to do, all those check marks are gone. I'm on page 1. I just type in page 11 here, hit enter, and I'm ready to go getting more records. So you can extract 250 at a time, and it's unlimited number of batches, right? Take as many as you need. You know, I do caution folks that, you know, I can always tell when I've got a new patron to the database, and especially if it's a salesperson and they're so excited they have information like this and they want to take it all out, but maybe there's 7,000 records and they're going, oh, Bill, it'll take me a long time to download 7,000 records. And I'll ask them what they're going to do with that. Oh, I'm going to sell to these businesses. I'll ask them how long or how quickly can they work through 300 leads. Well, that might take me a month. Well, then take out 300, take out 350, leave the others and come back to it later. Oh, never thought of that. So just because it's here, I can always save it and come back to the latest and greatest whenever I need to as well. So know that is available. I'm going to revise my search, and I happen to see that you all have this little company called Arby's. So I'll use that as an example here. Notice I have corporate tree information. So if you need corporate insight, and In some cases you may not, but most times I think people do need that kind of access to information. The up arrow will take you to one record, and that would be either the subsidiary that's responsible for all of these RBs or the ultimate parent. This will show you their entire organizational flow. So you can identify that corporate parent, which is this Rourke Capital Group, which is a private equity firm out of Atlanta, Georgia. And they have a total of 42 subsidiaries, Arby's being one of them, some 39,000 plus branches. There is a legend that runs across the top here. So I can quickly identify PV stands for a private company. If there is a subsidiary of a foreign parent, we'll only show you this record here in the United States. We won't take you to the parent company overseas. If you needed to see these other subsidiaries, you can simply close this one and there they all are. So, if I had something that I wanted to be able to sell to Arby's, it'd be great to know that Buffalo Wild Wings was also under their portfolio, or Carl's Jr., or Dunkin' Donuts, one of my favorite brands, Hardee's. So all these different restaurant chains that you're probably very familiar with, they're all under that same umbrella. And if I wanted to get to these Hardee's locations, I could certainly do that as well. Just depends on what I need to be able to do. So know you've got access to all of that information, and you were able to get that by simply selecting this icon here. And this is a perfect example of what, Martha, I'm supposed to call myself. Actually, I'll call Cam. It's giving me an error message. Oh, what did I broke something, and wouldn't you know that would happen on a Friday? I'm just going to go to a different record. I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that it's not broken. Okay, I didn't break it. So here I am at Arby's. Notice I have that corporate tree information here. We'll always have that location information first. Great for, obviously finding that business's location. I have those job listings, which we update daily through Indeed.com. There's my industry profile, that SIC code for all restaurants. I have my business profile for Arby's, and we won't have a business profile on every single business record, like Bob's Garage down the street that he works on lawnmower engines. We're not going to have a business profile on Bob's Garage. I have Google Maps embedded in here. I could, of course, print this off if I would like. I have these business demographics. So under this record, we were told this month, so we called them this month, so we'll call them again next year, roughly the same time, and we'll go back through and verify this information. When we called them this month, they told us they had 27 employees at this location. This particular record's been in our database for, about 38 years. Have that management directory. Company news, we get this loaded through, this is uploaded, we get this through Bing, and it's up to, this was just updated at 2:06 today. So there were a couple of updates done to this information at 12 noon, and then of course 2:06. And you can even get to older articles by coming down here and selecting this read more information. I also would have stock data there. If this were a publicly traded company, it's a branch, and so we would never have stock data on a branch, but we'll have that on the subsidiary or the parent. Then I have the business expenditures, followed by some historical information, including historical records. So remember I pointed out that on our homepage, we had that U.S. Historical Businesses module. That's what this information is containing. So if I wanted to go back to 2012 and take a look at this record, I could certainly do so. In fact, I have this slide that's right here that's on 2012. I could go back further in time if I'd like. Notice you can actually go all the way back to 1997. That's when we started capturing information from a historical perspective. I can always get back to my original record. And then I have 3 other fields. If they had taken out a loan and put something up as collateral, that information would be captured here. Of course, the nearby businesses. And then last but not least, a listing of those competitors. And as you can see, those are all broken arrow. I have seen, and it depends on the type of business. Here in Omaha, we have a beauty products manufacturer. And so it's not like you're going to find a lot of different beauty product manufacturers in any one community, unless maybe you're in France or something. I'm not certain about there. But so it goes out and identifies its their competition, but they're in essence in a 5-state area. But generally speaking, the competitors are always going to be local. I can always get back to the top. I can even update anything. You know, let's imagine it said here that there were 27 employees. Let's say that you had a interaction with Amber and learned that there were actually 37, not 27, 37. You could tell us about that. Any record, any of our records. I can't change anything with Indeed records, but I can change our records. So any record can be updated. As it notes here, you would send that in to our folks that do that research. Simply put a check mark next to the item or items that need to be updated. So if it were number of employees, I'd put that in. I'd wipe out the other one and put in 37. And then you simply fill out this information, submit it to us. We'll send you an email back immediately that we received your query, and we'll send you the confirmation of the completion of that information within generally 7 to 10 business days. So anything can be updated. Martha, any questions that may have come through? Or
no, Bill, we don't have any questions.
Well, did you call Cam for me, Martha, there to get that fixed? Because it got fixed really quick. Thank you for doing that. Certainly know that you can feel free to send through any questions you might like. I had mentioned, let's do this. When I come into my data selects here, I can choose any of these as filters. I'll leave restaurants just because we know we have a number of them, but let's say that you want to look at this information in a different geography that's important to you. I have this map-based search tool that you could, instead of selecting the county, you can come into the geography and let's add some filters. Let's go number of employees. So let's do a couple of these, and let's select those with web addresses. And then I'll open my map, and this map tool will allow you to utilize several different tools that are available in here. So if somebody wanted to do a search, I had and this was, everything's pre-COVID, right? This was pre-COVID. a gentleman had attended a presentation that I had done, and he was wearing a shirt, and I recognized the name that was on the shirt. It was Famous Dave's Barbecue. And so I asked him if he worked for Famous Dave's, or perhaps he was just a fan of Famous Dave's and bought the shirt. And he said, no, I work there. He said, I'm in charge of everything as it relates to our business with catering. So it's for all the businesses across and this was in Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee. And so he said, what I'd like to learn is how to use this tool that you have, that I could do a radius around my businesses. So you could put in a physical address and that city and state in this Zoom to field if you'd like. You can put in just a zip code. You could put in a county, state, just depends on what you need to do. Let's do this. We'll just put in Tulsa. And there it is. I'll say go, and then it will take me immediately to Tulsa there. So let's pretend for a moment he was looking for certain size businesses. So he didn't want real large businesses, because he was looking for business for their holidays, for the upcoming holiday season. So he was not wanting businesses that might potentially rent a hall or rent a hotel center to have their festival and have the hotel cater it. And they didn't want real small businesses, because they didn't want to perhaps try and attract business away from businesses that were so small they were just going to have like a potluck kind of event at the office. So he wanted businesses of a certain size. So let's imagine we've done that. I'm now at my address here at Tulsa. I could come to this radius option. I have several here, but I could come right to this radius option and come to that location. And then it's just a matter of clicking, holding it, and dragging your mouse away. So as you can see, I'm already out to about a mile right there. So if his radius was, let's say, 2 miles, I'll go out 2 miles, and I'm right there. And then you just let go, and it will calculate how many of those businesses are in that radius that match your search criteria. Obviously, I use different criteria in this example, but you get the idea. And then I simply say done, and I am so ready to give you those 32 locations. So he was going to have managers at each of the Famous Dave chains across the state of Tennessee do this various search through their various libraries, because the state of Tennessee, nearly all libraries had access to our database. So he was going to train them on how to do this so that they could do it for themselves and then go out and start marketing. So you can use that tool. You can draw your own shape. I helped a librarian down in Daytona Beach. I-95 runs down that eastern side of Florida, and she had a customer that needed to find dry cleaners, but they needed them on one side of I-95. So let's pretend for a moment that this 169 is I-95. And we'll just come down to here, and we'll come over to here, and we'll go right back up here. So I double click to finish it. And again, it will calculate how many of those businesses are in my area or in that shape that are of interest to me. Bingo, you're done. You simply say done and then view your results. You can also overlay some predetermined boundaries. It'll always start as large as the state, but you could get as narrow as a neighborhood. Just depends on what you would like to do. Here, for example, are the zip codes in the area. So it populates, boy, that's one big zip code there. It populates all those zip codes, And then it's just a matter of clicking in whichever zip codes that are of interest to you in that area. And if those were the ones that I wanted, bingo, I have the information and I can say done. So know that you have that ability, and you also can create a drive route. I helped a gentleman do this in Wisconsin. He wanted to go, he wanted to go between two cities in Wisconsin, and he was looking for certain manufacturers that manufacture or remanufacture skid pallets because he wanted to try and buy their extras. So we simply selected drive route with the radius and the drawing a shape. The maximum distance you can go out is 150 miles, and that is true with the drive route as well. Luckily, where he needed to be, it was only like 125, 135 miles, so he was well within that. And we ended up finding 18 of these manufacturers along this interstate system between these two communities. So he was tickled pink that he could get there. So we could say Tulsa, and we'll go to Stillwater. And then it's just a matter of how far off of center do you want to go? He went 3 miles because he figured that those manufacturers were going to be within a reasonable distance of the on-off ramps for the interstate. So again, I get to be the driver here. If I did 15 miles, if I did my max, that would be 15 miles north or 15 miles south or east-west, depending on which way the road's running, right? So I'll just do 0.5. So half a mile each way, total 1 mile. And I'm always amazed. I always think of Stillwater as further south, but it's about pert near straight west. So I have 39 results that match my criteria that are from Tulsa to Stillwater. And if that's all I needed, I can say done. I can even view those results because maybe I want to download them, maybe I want to save them, whatever I want to do. I could even put these back on the heat map. And it's as simple as it'll always start off with this nationwide view, and it looks like there's a bad storm there in Tulsa. But you simply start using this plus symbol and you can drive in. And you might have to reposition the screen a couple of times. And it doesn't look like in that section between the two cities, there's much that I'm finding in a half a mile north, a half a mile south, but there's plenty in Tulsa and plenty in Stillwater there. Now, I did notice there was an interesting name of a restaurant, Boomerang Burgers, I think it was, or something like that. Martha, have you enjoyed a Boomerang anything?
No, actually, I have not.
You try it out before I come down. I might want to go there. So know that you can do any of this kind of searching with this map-based tool. It all depends on what you need ultimately to get to that information. Oh, I didn't select any. Okay, that's right. It's 50. Any questions on how I got here? Notice I'm driving in just those businesses with a primary line of business for that of a restaurant. So this could be anything. This could be dry cleaners. This could be movie theaters. This could be veterinarians. This could be a wide variety of any kind of business. Could be those skid manufacturers or skid pallet manufacturers that I was telling you about. You get to drive in whatever makes the most sense for your business needs. Well, Martha, we're almost at the top of the hour.
Right.
No questions?
No questions.
Would you mind putting that question back up again? I'll stop sharing. And if people would like to participate, they can certainly respond to me with that correct response. And I would be happy to send out that Starbucks card.
Right.
There it is. Thank you so much for your time today, and be sure to reach out to the library if you would like further assistance. Martha, you want to tell everybody about the services that you all offer?
Bill, first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing all this great information. And we'll look forward to having our customers contact us for more help. We have several ways that we can help you. One of those is to we can schedule a one-on-one virtual appointment with Research Center staff, and we can take you through the steps for doing whatever you need to do that would be tailored to your specific need. To do that, you just contact the library's Ask Us department and visit our website, tulsalibrary.org, to find out how to ask us, or you can just call the phone number 918-549-7323. Thanks, Bill, and we look forward to hearing from our customers. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Martha. Bye-bye.